Take the tallest mountain on Earth, Mount Everest. Nearly 9 kilometers of rock stabbing up into the sky. Now imagine picking it up, turning it upside down, and dropping it into the ocean at one specific spot in the Pacific. It would sink, completely. The summit of Everest would vanish beneath the waves, and there would still be well over a mile of black water above it before you reached the bottom. That place is the Mariana Trench, the deepest scar on the face of our planet, plunging almost 11 kilometers straight down. It is darker than anything you have ever experienced, colder than ice water, and the pressure down there is so crushing it could flatten a submarine like a soda can. By every logic, it should be utterly dead. A lightless, frozen, high-pressure tomb where nothing could possibly survive. And yet, it isn't. Down there, in the most hostile place on Earth, things are alive. Strange things. Things that look like they swam out of a nightmare or another planet entirely. Today we're going all the way to the bottom to meet the creatures that live in the deepest place on Earth and to understand how on Earth they manage to stay alive. And the first thing we need to talk about is the force that should make all of this impossible: the pressure. To understand why life at the bottom of the Mariana Trench is so astonishing, you have to understand the pressure. And it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. Here's how it works. The deeper you go underwater, the more water there is stacked on top of you, pressing down. For every 10 meters you descend, the pressure increases by about the weight of our entire atmosphere. So go down 100 meters, and you've got 10 atmospheres pressing on you. Go down 1,000, and it's 100. Now go all the way to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, nearly 11,000 meters down. At that depth, the pressure is roughly 1,000 times greater than what you feel standing on the surface right now. We're talking about a force of around 8 tons pressing on every single square inch. That's like balancing dozens of jumbo jets on your fingertip, or having 50 of the largest aircraft stacked on top of you, everywhere on your body, all at once. A human being sent down there unprotected wouldn't drown. They would be crushed almost instantly, squeezed by a force that can buckle thick metal. This is the single biggest reason scientists long assumed the deep trenches were lifeless. Nothing, they thought, could possibly withstand that kind of force. So the real mystery isn't just what lives down there, it's how anything possibly can. So let's answer that, because the solution these creatures found is genuinely brilliant, and it's the key to the whole story. The reason pressure is so deadly to us is that our bodies are full of air pockets. Our lungs, our sinuses, tiny gaps in our tissues. Under massive pressure, those air spaces get violently crushed, and that's what destroys us. So how do you survive being squeezed by 8 tons per square inch? The trick is to have nothing inside you that can be squeezed. The animals of the deep trench have, over millions of years, essentially eliminated air from their bodies. They have no air-filled cavities for the pressure to crush. Their flesh is soft, squishy, and full of water. And here's the clever part. Water barely compresses at all. Because their bodies are basically water inside and water outside, the pressure pushes equally from every direction and simply cancels out. They aren't fighting the pressure, they're letting it pass straight through them. It's like the difference between crushing an empty plastic bottle and trying to crush a bottle completely full of water. The full one barely yields. These creatures made themselves into the full bottle. They don't resist the crushing ocean, they become part of it. But there's an even deeper problem, and it's invisible. It happens at the level of individual molecules. Pressure that extreme doesn't just crush hollow spaces, it physically deforms the tiny machinery inside living cells. Proteins, the microscopic workhorses that run every living thing, are folded into precise, delicate shapes. And at the bottom of the trench, the sheer pressure tries to squash and distort those shapes, which would normally cause the whole organism to fail. So deep-sea creatures evolved a secret weapon. Special molecules called piezolites. You can think of them as tiny molecular bodyguards. These substances flood the creature's cells and physically prop up their proteins, bracing them against the crushing force so they keep their proper shape and keep working. One of these molecules is so important that, fascinatingly, the deeper a fish lives, the more of it scientists find packed into its body. The concentration rises steadily with depth, like an internal pressure gauge made of chemistry. There may even be a hard limit here. Scientists suspect that below a certain depth, no fish can exist at all, because you simply can't pack in enough of these protective molecules to survive. The trench may have a literal floor for vertebrate life, set not by the seafloor, but by the laws of chemistry itself. Now there's one more impossible problem to solve before anything can live down there, and it's maybe the most fundamental of all. Food. Think about it. Almost every food chain on the surface of our planet begins with sunlight. Plants and algae capture sunlight and turn it into energy, and everything else eats them, or eats the things that ate them. But at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, there has never been a single ray of sunlight. None. It is a realm of total, absolute, eternal darkness. So if there's no sunlight, and therefore no plants, what on earth does anything eat? The answer is hauntingly beautiful, and it's called marine snow. Far, far above, in the sunlit surface waters, things are constantly living and dying, and when they die, fish, plankton, tiny organisms, their remains, along with waste and other organic scraps, slowly begin to sink. Down and down they drift through the darkness, for days, sometimes weeks, a gentle, perpetual fall of dead material. From below, it looks like a soft, ceaseless snowfall, which is exactly why scientists named it marine snow. This faint drizzle of death from the world above is the food that rains down to feed the bottom of the ocean. The entire deep ecosystem survives on the leftovers of the sunlit world, on whatever scraps make it all the way down. The deep is fed by the slow, falling ghosts of everything that died far overhead. So now we know the rules of this impossible world. Crushing pressure, eternal darkness, and a food supply made only of falling scraps. Let's finally meet the residents. And the first one holds an incredible record. It's a small, pale, almost ghostly creature called the snailfish, and it is the deepest living fish ever discovered on Earth. Specifically, the Mariana snailfish has been found and filmed living thousands of meters down, deeper than any other fish we know of. And it looks the part. It's small, only a few inches long, with a soft, slightly tadpole-like shape and a translucent body. Its skin is so see-through that you can look straight through it and glimpse the organs inside. It has no scales, and its bones aren't hard and rigid like ours. Instead, its skeleton is soft and partly made of cartilage, which flexes under pressure instead of shattering. It can barely see because in a world with no light, eyes are nearly useless, so it finds its food by sensing the water around it. And despite looking so fragile and delicate, this little fish is actually one of the top predators of its deep domain, gliding calmly along the seafloor and hunting down the smaller creatures that share its dark home. It thrives precisely where everything else would be destroyed. A soft, transparent, almost angelic little fish ruling over the most hostile neighborhood on the planet. And what does that snailfish hunt? That brings us to perhaps the most successful and abundant animals of the deep, the amphipods. These are small, shrimp-like crustaceans, scavengers that swarm across the floor of the trench in enormous numbers, hoovering up that falling marine snow and feasting on anything dead that drifts down. They are the cleanup crew of the abyss, the insects of the deep sea, found in staggering quantities at depths where almost nothing else lives. But here is where it gets strange, because the deep sea does something bizarre to certain creatures. It makes them grow gigantic. There is a phenomenon called deep-sea gigantism, where some animals that are small in shallow water balloon to shocking sizes in the deep. While a normal amphipod near the surface might be the size of a fingernail, certain supergiant amphipods found in these deep waters can grow to be over a foot long. Picture a shrimp-like creature the length of your forearm scuttling across the sea floor. Scientists still aren't entirely sure why the deep makes things grow so big. It may be linked to the cold and the pressure, or to living life in a slower, longer gear. And these amphipods have another almost unbelievable trick. Some of them can eat wood. When trees and plant matter from land eventually sink all the way to the bottom, certain amphipods digest it using a special enzyme. They've turned the rare scraps of the sunlit world into a feast, surviving on driftwood at the bottom of the sea. But if you really want to meet something that defies belief, look down at the muddy floor of the trench, where strange blobs the size of a softball sit motionless in the sediment. These are the xenophyophores, and they might be the most mind-bending organisms in the entire ocean. Here's the part that sounds impossible. A xenophyophore is a single cell, one single cell that can grow to the size of your fist or larger. Almost every other organism that big is made of billions or trillions of cells working together. But the xenophyophore is one enormous, solitary cell that simply got gigantic, making it among the largest single-celled organisms known to exist anywhere on Earth. They sit on the sea floor and slowly sift through the mud, feeding on the sediment. And they build themselves intricate structures by gluing together particles, minerals, and debris from their surroundings into a kind of living shell. Scientists believe they're incredibly important to the deep, providing shelter and homes for countless other tiny creatures, like microscopic apartment buildings on the abyssal plain. And remember, these soft, glassy giants thrive in a place that should be sterile, doing it all as a single cell, in the dark, under a force that would crush a submarine. They are proof that life doesn't just survive at the bottom of the world, it gets creative there. And the trench is full of other ghostly residents living alongside them. There are sea cucumbers, soft, squishy creatures that crawl along the bottom, vacuuming up sediment. Some of them so delicate and translucent, they look like blobs of living jelly. There are pale, otherworldly jellyfish drifting through the black water. Some of them species so new that scientists haven't even given them names yet. They simply appear on camera, glowing faintly, looking like something beamed in from another galaxy. There are deep-sea worms, ghostly white octopuses, and strange eel-like fish, all of them adapted to a world we are only beginning to glimpse. And underpinning all of it, invisible to the eye, are the bacteria, the true foundation of this hidden world. In the deep sea, certain microbes have learned a trick that doesn't need sunlight at all. Instead of using light for energy, they pull energy directly out of chemicals seeping from the earth, like methane and sulfur. It's a process called chemosynthesis, and it means that in some places, the food chain doesn't start with the sun at all. It starts with the raw chemistry of the planet itself. Whole communities can live on the energy bleeding out of the seafloor, completely independent of the sun that everything up here depends on. It's almost like an entirely separate version of life, running on its own private power source in the dark. And here's the thought that should genuinely stagger you. Everything we've just described, the snailfish, the giant amphipods, the softball-sized single cells, the nameless glowing jellyfish, all of that is just the tiny fraction we've actually managed to see. Because the deep ocean is the least explored place on our entire planet. We have detailed maps of the surface of the Moon and Mars, yet the overwhelming majority of our own ocean floor has never been seen by human eyes. More than 80% of the ocean remains completely unexplored, unmapped, and unobserved. Think about what that means. The Mariana Trench and the deep sea around it could be teeming with creatures we have never laid eyes on. Entire species, maybe entire types of life, living and dying down there in the dark, completely unknown to us. Every single expedition to the bottom tends to come back with something new. A new animal, a new behavior, a new impossibility. We have quite literally explored more of outer space than we have the deepest parts of our own planet. The greatest frontier left on Earth isn't up in the sky. It's straight down, beneath the waves, in the crushing dark. But there's one last discovery from the bottom of the trench, and it's not a wonder, it's a warning. When scientists sent equipment down to the deepest point on the planet, expecting to find an untouched, pristine wilderness sealed off from the human world by 7 miles of water, they found something heartbreaking instead. They found us. They found a plastic bag and other human trash lying on the floor of the deepest place on Earth. And when they caught some of those little amphipods, the scavengers of the abyss, and examined them, they discovered tiny fragments of plastic inside their bodies. Let that sink in. In the most remote, most inaccessible, most untouched seeming location on the entire planet, a place no human being can even visit without a specialized machine, our pollution had already arrived and woven itself into the bodies of the creatures living there. There is, it turns out, no longer anywhere on Earth that is truly beyond our reach. And maybe that's the most important thing the bottom of the Mariana Trench has to teach us. It spent millions of years proving that life can endure the most extreme, hostile, impossible conditions imaginable, crushing dark that should kill anything. And then, in the span of a few decades, we managed to reach all the way down into that ancient, alien world and leave our mark on it. The deep is no longer untouched. The only question left is what we choose to do now that we know our hands reach even there.